Hello. I'm your host, Lelouch V, aka Otis East, content director of Blerd.com. Today, I am joined by the talented Jemima Victor.
Hey,
Introduce yourself, so the Blerd world can know.
yeah, so hey everyone, it's Jemima. I am
I've
the
been saying
author.
it wrong the whole time. I feel awful
I
now.
love the private chat
Mm,
you, but
It's okay, Jemima Victor, and I'm not gonna edit that out. I will make sure that is corrected so anybody else that sees it knows to not say Jemima. It's Jemima Victor. I'll take that
yeah.
L.
Okay, cool. Wait, is it doing like this weird like filter on my teeth, right?
Actually, yep, it just started. They're too white, so they think they're part of the background.
That's
They're-
so weird. Okay, that's so weird. Okay, how about? Oh,
oh, this is for
okay,
sure going in bloopers.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. Okay, so let me just try and not move too much. 'Cause I feel like when I move,
No cable
it's
tooth. No table tooth.
no table tooth at all. But yeah, so what was the first question? Let's start from the top.
Yeah. Uh, so Jemima Victor, the author of the Hidden Script, which has
Yeah, we just gotta
been a
both gotta
hidden
breathe.
secret to me because I mean, like I, if I would have known the book like this existed, I would have been like all over this before. Like, so before we get to your part, I'm gonna gush over your book a little bit, just a little bit. So reading through this, I felt so connected to the characters because they talk in ways that I'm familiar with. Like that was a huge draw to me to really get like like man, like I can hear these characters even though I'm reading it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
What made you want to take that type of approach with your writing? Because I mean, there is a bit of a difference in tone between like the exposition words and like the way the characters speak. So
Mhm.
I guess we kind of diving straight into there. How did you figure to do that?
Yeah, so basically it's funny because it started I was really inspired by Zora Neale Hurston. So oh my gosh, this is so bad. Maybe see if I can change the settings. Because it's gonna I'm like trying to like not.
Dodge and make sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, is this better?
Yep.
I don't know. I also was thinking I should have had a picture of the hidden script in the background. That would have been actually smarter. So let me try and get like download a
I,
quick book cover and put that
I,
so
I,
people can
I'm gonna add it in post. I'll have the book kind of underneath you, and
Oh, okay.
if I can try to figure out a way to get some of the characters in there too, I'll add that as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. 'Cause I was like, oh, I could like, get something, but it'd be way easier to just get things rolling. But yeah, man, I'm so sorry. You're gonna have so many outtakes because of me, and it's not even intentional.
Do not feel this is why we record, and bloopers do just as well as the actual post too. So we'll have some
Oh,
fun with
okay.
this one.
Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Glad to see that bloopers are good. I feel
Oh,
like
there
this
we
is
go.
worse with the teeth. Oh my god, that's so bad. Okay. Maybe if I just lean okay,
I
if I lean
mean,
back, that's better.
yeah, that works. I mean, plus it's hard to mess up that smile. So I mean, hey,
Thank you. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so at least I got something relevant in the background. Okay, so you were asking me why did I have the two-tone voices or like what inspired that style? I would say twofold. One is that I was really inspired by Zora Neale Hurston, like her book Their Eyes Were Watching God, one of my all-time favorite books of basically all time. And I just really liked it because normally when I hear like people talk like me, it's always associated with like struggle or like, I don't know. I didn't grow up personally in the hood, so I don't really have a connection to that. And I always wanted to see like a suburban, like I still wanted to have people like talk like me, but like I can't relate to some of the stuff. And I don't even mean to make it sound like, oh, I can't relate. Like it's not even like that. But it's just more so I just wanted something different and also more so something lighthearted. Like it doesn't have to be like I remember one of the books someone recommended. It's like literally so acclaimed, has so many awards, and I started reading it, and I was like, man, I'm like, it was like these minors and like these underage kids just like doing the most, and I was like, girl, you're like 12. Why don't you jump rope or something? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like this like drug dealer's daughter, like the princess of. I was just like, this is too much. This is too much. You like, I feel like the plot would have been better if they were like an older cast, but still, I just feel like that whole kind of like um I just it was too much for me. I was like, you know what? I want something lighthearted. I want something fun. I still want them to talk and sound like us, but just be like a different narrative. You know what I'm saying? And if it's like a struggle, it's just because of their bad decisions. It's not because of anything like crazy. Um, but I mean, I feel like also too, like the racial trauma aspect or any of like um other books. I feel like there's a space for that too. 'Cause I read that growing up too. I like ate it up. You know what I'm saying? But I just wanted different now that I'm older. Like, I wanted just something different. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. I mean,
Okay.
the more I have made content and the more I connect with people around the content creator space, the more I realize how much importance there is behind representation. Being able to feel connected to a piece of content adds another layer of like immersion to the, the series or whatever it be a book, a comic, a movie. You know, when you see yourself in it and and it feels familiar to you, you can get into it that much more. So I just thought it
Um,
was really impressive, like adding that level of familiarity, but still making a cohesive story. So kudos to you on that. But let's walk it back a little bit. The hidden scripts. If you want to give a rundown of what the story is to the audience, how would you describe
yeah,
it?
I would definitely say it's a story about four friends who go on an adventure to be kings and queens in a new land. So it's fantasy, slice of life, and it starts with them at orientation. Things go wrong, so they're scrambling to get to the crowning ceremony. And then once they get there, you see all
The
the chaos that they
rhinos.
have to live. Yeah, yeah, it's good
So
stuff, right? Yeah,
yeah, yeah, there. I'm trying not to gush too much over to take like a more objective approach to this interview, but I'm
yeah.
and also excuse my background noise. I got a tournament, a Super Smash Brothers tournament being hosted in the background
Oh,
here.
cool. Okay.
But yeah, let's get to your characters. So we got your main
Yeah.
characters are Hiru, Yari, Aibo, and Janine. Did I butcher those? Tell me I didn't
No,
butcher
you're
those.
close. It was good. It was good. It was just Avo versus Ivo.
Abo,
It's fine.
Abo. I'm sorry, Abo. And again, this is use me as the correct me everywhere I'm wrong. So make sure that the audience knows how to address these characters properly. So do not feel bad having to fix me anywhere my pronunciation because I'm still learning here.
Cool.
But
Cool.
uh, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown between those? I have my favorite, and we talked about that a little bit at the convention beforehand. But let's
Yeah.
talk about your character, son.
Yeah. So we have, Abel, he's the oldest. He has fire powers, and he was like at first their pick for lead, but then he ends up, not being the lead. And then Kiru, he is the one that ends up being lead king. And I just say quote unquote because what does that even mean, right? Like, is it that big of a
Mhm.
deal? Is it he has wind powers. He's more introverted. He tends to be stuck in his own head, to be honest. Like if he has an issue, he'll just ruminate and ruminate and ruminate and ruminate instead of just like spitting it out. And then there's Yari. He has shadow powers and he's more of a wild card. Um, you don't really know what to expect with him. You know what I'm saying? Like he keeps things
My
interesting.
favorite.
He's also, yeah, he's your favorite, right? And he's also very kind-hearted at the same time. But like you wouldn't like tell, but at first glance, because like his actions
Mhm.
show it, but you see it in like the subtleties. And then there's Janine. She's a girl's girl and she has mind powers. Um, she loves making connections and is all about you know, keeping the peace and like finding opportunities for them and to advance and stuff. Being very advantageous for the group. Yeah.
That is awesome. So, when you were putting these characters together, did you draw any influence from anything else? Like, how did you make the world of air? Like, how did am I pronouncing that right?
Air, air.
Air. Okay. Air. See, again, all the corrections I can take them, throw them at me. I got it. But how did
Yeah.
you create that world? Where did that come from?
It's honestly, I would just say piece by piece. I know that kind of sounds a little generic, but I didn't really have the whole scope of everything in mind when I first started. I had like bits and pieces. Like I knew there was like a place where they had orientation. I knew the capital was in one part. I knew that their castle was in one part, and I kind of had like a rough sketch of it. But I would say it's kind of like I'm trying to think how I really did come up with the map at least. It was just like a rough sketch. Um, I just knew I just started with like two halves. I know there's gonna be like a river that runs through the middle. Because here's the thing, like sometimes as you start writing, things fill in the blanks themselves. So like I was just like trying to describe where they were at, and I could see the compound. I was like, okay, so there's like all these cylindrical things, like geometric concrete. And then like as I kind of started writing, I was like, oh, okay, I guess there's a river, and like, okay, where am I gonna draw that? So it's like a mix of like what comes up organically in the description, and then what I come up with to fill in the gaps, if that makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. And honestly, the way that you kind of expand on the world building piece by piece as the chapters go, it also adds a layer of immersion to it too. Like, I mean, and also being able to go back and reference the map as we're like, when I hear about different locations, like, oh, where is that? And I was like, oh, right there. I'm not gonna butcher any of the places again. I'll let you introduce some of those as we go through the interview. But I'm impressed with the world. Like, so is this more of a high fantasy world overall, where we have people like in a far off place with all these mythical beasts and creatures, or is this more like bringing that into the real world? Like, how would you describe that, if I'm asking?
Yeah, I would describe it more as high fantasy. So it starts off with them in like if you see flashbacks of them, it'll be back with them on Earth. But then when you see them like in action, it'll be like when you see them in action, it'll be here in this new world. So it's like a different location. So it has its own customs, its own like time, way of telling time. And it's also like a mix of old and new. So in my head, like the year it takes place, like 2018 or like circa that era. Um, and I just, take it from there and try to like bring
Hmm.
differentiators and stuff. Yeah.
I think it translates pretty well. Something else that I noticed, well, there's so many things that are different about your book compared to most books, so we're going to run down a couple of them. So,
Yeah,
I
let's
mean,
do it.
the chapters are all kind of broken down shorter than typical, and it reads almost like kind of like a television show where you're kind of switching between scene to scene to scene.
Yeah.
Tell us about like what made you decide to go that route, and the how you got that idea, because I think it translates very well actually.
Okay, that's good. Honestly, it was a huge risk because in my
Hmm,
head, I just seen it. And listen, everything about the book, it was a whole huge
hmm,
risk. Like, it's funny because when I'm at conventions, people are recommending, like, hey, I want to be like you. I want to do that. I'm like, no, it just happened to
hmm,
work out.
hmm,
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is by God's grace, it all worked out, but it was really a risk. I really wouldn't recommend you jumping off the cuff like that, but just, that's why I'm just really glad hearing all your feedback is so heartwarming because like I didn't really know it was gonna work out. But in my head, I saw it as a movie. So um like the opening scene, especially part one, I had seen it visually and I could imagine like, okay, this is where the like when they have an establishing shot and you have like the camera panning and like, okay, this is the location, then you have the setting, and you have the night and you hear the rain and like that's how I imagined it. And so because I thought it was gonna be a movie at first and I couldn't get it to be a movie, like an animated, animated film, I couldn't get that going. I couldn't get the comic. I basically simplified it down to like what could I control, which was a book. And so because of that, like I still like saw things visually and I just imagined it to be like a floating camera. So whenever I thought of a cut shot or where a camera would pan to somewhere else or focus on another character, I kind of just split it there. So you'd normally find it's either between like if we have something between outside and inside, that would be a chapter split, or if we're having like something happening in real time and then that triggers a flashback, that would be a chapter break. Or what else? Anything that kind of like seems like a natural handoff that you would do when like filming. I just did a chapter
No,
break. Yeah.
it translates well, and it made it very digestible. Because I mean, typically, well, I mean, I read pretty often, but like sometimes it's hard to retain, the information, like going from a long chapter to another long chapter, and then also, if you're when you're taking breaks, because remembering everything that you read beforehand can be so difficult sometimes. Not saying that it's impossible, but because people have done it for forever. But with your book specifically, it's almost like, okay, you're giving me a place that I know I can break and still retain everything that I said that I read, but also still continue with the action. So I think yeah,
Yeah.
it was a risk, but I think it paid off pretty well. And yeah, I'm learning from you because, like, again, like this, your book is so unique in so many different ways. Just breaking down your process is pretty illuminating for me too.
Oh,
Also,
awesome.
another thing that is very different about yours is the art. There's artwork all over your book, and it again, keep throwing out the word immersion, but it helps to paint the picture of what's happening in my mind. What made you decide to go that route? Is that an intentional thing to go into what I said? Was it a bigger meaning behind it? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Honestly, it's paying tribute to how I wanted to be a comic because when I couldn't figure out how to make it an animated
Oh, don't
film.
tell me that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of how it started. And it's funny because I didn't think it was possible to integrate photos, I mean not photos, but illustrations and books in that way. Like I had seen examples from like old style, like old like books like like Charles Dickens, and like how they have like pencil scratches and like black and white sketches and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So I was like leaning in that direction. And then it's funny because one day I'm like town square, how they have those little like public libraries, like this like free things, just grab a book. In there, I had seen a book called The Search of Wanda. And it was like a yellow stained, like old book, but I was flipping through it and it actually had like full color illustrations integrated with the text, like way, way more than I even had. It ended up just being like this way because time constraints and budget constraints. But I had and that like after seeing that book, I was like, oh, this is possible. So I was like, let's see what we can do. So that's how that happened.
No, yeah. Again, another risk that you took, but for me, I think it's pulled off really well. It it makes it feel just such like an authentic story. Like I can't really like usually when I am consuming content, I find ways to kind of bridge it like, oh, this is like this or this is like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I can't really think of many things to compare yours to. And that's a pretty good thing. Like
Okay, cool.
I appreciated that. Um let's go back to even further, right?
Yeah.
Before you even started writing the hidden script, like what kind of got you into writing in the first place? Like what made you say like, this is my path, this is what I enjoy, this is what I'm gonna pursue.
Honestly, it just kind of happened because of the idea. Because before I was writing, I was an accountant for a short stint of
Mhm,
time, like a good,
mhm,
not even a year. I had studied school and I did psychology and I did accounting, and then at my job, I was like, I don't know. I just feel like the experience, like I loved learning about accounting, which sounds really, really weird. Most people are like, "Who cares about that?" But I think
mhm,
it's just the way that my teachers and like stuff compared it all to like brought it to life. That was really interesting. And even working at the job that I had, like the people there were great. Like the staff was great. I think it was just one of those weird like circumstances where my year, because it was just like I don't know. I feel like it was a year like my entry in class didn't have like the mentorship, or I don't know what it was, but like a lot of people in my class had the same kind of complaints, whereas the people coming in after us had a little bit better of a time. So it was like a weird, I guess it was God made it that way so that way I would leave, because if it was good, I
mhm.
would have stayed, never in this. Um but I just didn't like the actual work. Like I would rather brainstorm and talk about other things or do something else. When it came time to actually sit on my computer and just stare at the screen, I was just like, "Can I take another coffee break?" Like, it was just a lot.
Mhm.
It was a lot for me, you know? And so, it's funny 'cause I had a lot of downtime before the busy season, and, that's when I was starting to think about, whether I wanted to, like, build a streaming platform or, like, what my first initial business idea was. And with that, like, I never really thought I was gonna quit my job. 'Cause I had a whole 5-year plan, like, I'm gonna use my 9 to 5 to fund my business because, these things are expensive, and so I had made, like, this whole, like, flip chart presentation to, show my friend who because he was studying at BC to be a lawyer, and I was like, "You know what?" And he wants to be, like, corporate tax or, I mean, corporate law, business law. I was like, "Yeah, let me just tell him all these ideas, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" And so I guess the best thing that came from that time was knowing that I need to incorporate a business, and that was 2018. So that's why, again, like, everything is, like, set in 2018 because that's kinda when I started, and I'm just now scratching the surface of, the stories I had planned. Um, but it's basically like it was just more so I had to get this idea out. It wasn't so much that, yeah, I'm a writer by nature, I've been writing all my life. Probably, like, essays or, like, school, um, projects or stuff like that, but I always liked writing, and I kinda had, like, a way about it because I could always, like, kind of finesse when I had a last minute project for school, but it wasn't like I knew I wanted to be a writer. There were really hints throughout my life. I feel like I think better through writing sometimes, or even just, like, I had a phase where I just loved writing, like, cards to people and just write, like, paragraphs, and, like, it wasn't cool back then. It's cool now, I guess, because there's, like, a whole resurgence of, like, snail mail. But back then, they're like my friends were just like, "Just text me. Like, why are you making note cards? This is unnecessary. Just text me." And I didn't text them. I didn't text. But yeah, it was just I had to get this idea out by any means necessary, and, that's how it ended up working out. Yeah.
Nah, it's definitely an interesting journey. Because I mean, I followed a similar path. Along with doing everything that I do for Blerd, I'm also a comic book writer myself, which is
Oh,
why
nice.
a light bulb in my brain went off saying you want to turn into a comic. I have a whole comic book company, but we'll talk about that off after camera. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I really had no intention of ever like really doing that. Like the closest thing I ever really did beforehand to doing stories is like playing with my action figures with my friends and say, "Oh, you got a Goku, I got a Gundam. Let's find a
Yeah.
way to make this story combine." Stuff like that. But it's funny how life works out. You
Yeah.
never really necessarily like plan to get to a position where you're telling stories to other people that people consume, but when you do and you do it well, I mean, it gets noticed. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
What about so you touched on it a little bit in your explanation there. So the hidden script is not a single story. This is a continued story that you're going to continue to build off of, or like tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that. Without
Yeah,
spoilers,
for
without
sure.
spoilers. Mhm,
Okay, no spoilers.
mhm,
I definitely do plan on it being a series. Right now, I'm thinking about 5 books or so. We'll see, God willing, because you never know what things are. But I'm hoping that I get at least 5 because the way that it planned out, I already know book 1 and 2, they kind of go together really, really tightly because initially they were meant to be one book. Um, but I kind of like cut it in half because I couldn't afford to produce the whole thing as I imagined it,
mhm.
because my first, like, thought for the book was to have it be the first month, hence why it was
Wait,
called
so
The Intricate Kingdom.
wait. Before you go too far, you said this is half? Like this is not this is half. Okay,
Because
okay.
it only captures 1
Continue,
week.
continue. Fair.
Yeah, so when I was originally drafting it, I wanted to follow their whole month, and you see, like,
Mhm,
things that happen, so that's why it's kinda, the title was supposed to be an irony, or not really irony, but a play on
mhm,
words, but it won't make sense until you reach the second one.
mhm,
And I don't even know if at that point people will read it and be like, "Oh, I remember it," like, because it feels like 2 books now. I had since added some stuff to make the first one more complete, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it makes perfect sense.
right? So then that means everything that I had planned for like the sequel and the third one gets pushed back another digit. So that means that instead of like one, two, three, it's now two, three, four. And then that
Hmm.
means it might be five. That's why I'm thinking that way. Yeah.
Hmm. I mean that just knowing that this is a series gets me a little bit more hype. I like longer stories, but I don't like too long. Like I somewhere between One Piece length and Full Metal Alchemist length. That's usually where I try to go to for my content.
Pretty
But
long.
yeah, yeah, that's an understatement.
But it
Um,
doesn't feel long. That's the good thing about One Piece. Like you'll just flip through the chapters. It doesn't feel long, which is nice.
yeah. So actually, with doing that, you segued into exactly what I wanted to go to next. So, what other medium do you enjoy, and what did any of that actually reference? Like, well, not necessarily reference, but reflect how your characters were built in the script.
Yeah, yeah. I really enjoy music. So I imagine the characters being a band. Um,
Okay.
like like they all have musical instrument skills. Like Abel plays the keys, Yari's a drummer, Kiru's on bass, and I kind of felt like that would like kind of go with their personalities. And then Janine, she sings. I was thinking of also having her play the harp, but that's so impractical that where are you going to find a harp lying around? So that's why she also sings if there's no harp around.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of felt like the instruments kind of aligned with their personalities. And like, Yari's a little bit more chaotic, he can like wild out on the drums. You can like, see that happening. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, Abel's a little bit more smooth and charismatic, hence why he plays the keys. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed music growing up in church. That was like my love. And I just, that just made sense. It just made sense. It just made sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there has to be like a OVA or like a small clip of like them actually performing together. Like that has to happen. Like I'm
Yeah.
putting that out into the world. I would love to
Yeah.
see it. Mm,
It has to. Cause it's funny
mm,
because in one of the I don't know if I'm gonna still put this into the book, but in one of the future installments, like the reason why that came into play is because they had like a mission and they had to like go undercover, and so they go undercover in like this huge fancy gala as musicians. And it's kind of worked out because they could play it and like as their spine. It's I hope I put that still in there. It's somewhere in my notes, but we'll see. Because also as you keep writing, the story kind of like changes too. So
yeah,
yeah.
as it should. It should evolve with that with your writing skill too. 'Cause, I mean, being able to write this much takes way more skill than I have on myself, which is why I just stuck to comics so far. I may get to a book eventually, but
Yeah,
this was
don't
this
sell
was
yourself short. It's more
mm,
about endurance. It's just like you gotta keep writing and keep editing and just keep going. Half of it is just keep going. Just keep going because it's tough. Sometimes it's discouraging.
mm. So one thing you mentioned before, like you always mentioned, vision this as a movie. Would you imagine this more as like becoming a live action movie, more the animated route? Like in your perfect world, what would this story become? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, in my perfect world, I would have to go with animated just because of the like I feel like you can do more with the powers and
I just want to give
dramatic,
you a high five through the camera. Like I wish that
right?
the continue. Sorry, yeah.
Because I feel like with like I mean, sure we have a lot of like things going on with CGI, but I just feel like it don't compare. Like especially with fantasy, like you don't have to worry about color tone and like setting things up. You can just go into it. Honestly, I kind of would like both. I would like it to be animated first, and then because people love the animated so much, would be turned into live action. Um, but yeah,
Mm. I mean, if it's a live action fan cast, who would you pick as your four characters?
that's a good question. It's funny because I was thinking I actually had it on Pinterest. I gotta go find it, but I think for sure I had I feel like Ryan Destiny was Janine, or like either Ryan Destiny or Coco Jones as Janine.
Hmm. Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. I feel like it's funny because the guy I had, I don't know if I would have as Avo now. I'm thinking about it. Yari, I kind of want to say, was it Damson? What's his
Dancing
name?
Idris.
Yeah, that's just because he's like, I feel like he fits the skin tone, but like he's a little popular right now. But I feel like there's someone
He's
else.
buzzing, man. I'm a fan, a big fan of Snowfall.
Okay, and then I feel like for Kuro, that British guy who played the main character of All American, he's like I don't
I know
remember his
exactly
name.
what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I feel like he could be a good
Mhm.
Kuro. I'm trying to think though. 'Cause I'm trying to think like there's also like height and like because they're all like different ranging heights. Like Kiro's around like 5'10 ish, you know. Yari's the tallest, like 6'4", and then Abel's somewhere in the middle, like 6'2".
So now I got to fan. I'm fan casting myself. I am Yari. He's my height,
Oh,
six
yeah,
four.
he
He's got my
is.
favorite power set too. I got to do it. I'll learn the accent. I'll go to the coach that they had for Black Panther. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So yeah, I don't
Mm.
know. I think it's just I feel that would be cool. Cinnabar, I don't know who I would cast as Cinnabar. He's a very precarious one. I like
He's
him.
very
Yeah,
colorful character.
yeah, I like
So
my fave.
mm,
They're all my fave. At least my fave is
actually,
my fave.
since you're here, I can ask, what exactly is Cinnabar's power? Because it is crazy. So being able to ask you directly, that this is actually a good experience for me. But what is his ability,
You
or is that a
know?
spoiler?
Um,
Yeah,
it's not a spoiler. It's more
okay.
so I'm still exploring that myself as the author. 'Cause I'm very tempted to have him have no powers or have him have a power that you don't figure out until way later. I haven't figured out which route I want to go. So I kind of just kept it in the background. So I kind of kept it loose enough that if I do want him to have power in the future, you'll see it. But then if I don't, it doesn't feel like it's weird because you never really see him have to like use his powers, you know?
Right, 'cause I'm just saying, like, there are little explosions going on. You got pierced to the stomach with a rhino. You're just like, yeah, I'm good, whatever, chilling. Cool character though. Like
Yeah.
that's usually the type that I gravitate towards for like like the villains that I appreciate. Just yeah, like this is fun to me. Like
Yeah.
I appreciate it. But I mean, yeah, we spoke on it before, and I mentioned it again in this. But Yari's definitely my favorite. He's kind of like the loner outsider, but not really an outsider type. And I feel
Yeah.
like that kind of fits me as well too. Um, how did you choose the powers that they had? Like, is that something that's tied to their personality? So, like, is there anything specific behind it, or how did you reach that?
Um, yeah, it is tied to their personalities. I don't know, in my head, I kind of felt like it's like part a mix of like genetic versus environment. So I feel like, I don't know, it's like I feel like it's powers that they needed at some point in their life growing up. And that's how they end up developing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how like, I don't know, like I don't know. I feel like okay, for example, if you're like tall, you could be a model, or you could play basketball, or you could be a track star. But depending on like, because you have like the the shape for it, the height, and the muscles for it. But it just all depends on like what your environment, like what you're supported in what you choose. You know, if you have like say you're in LA, you'll probably be pushed to be either the model or athlete, or if you're like I don't know if you're like in I mean, New York City has a high fashion place, but if you were somewhere else in the US, they might have like pushed you to be like into STEM if you're really good at math and just forego all your physical attributes. I just that's kind of how I like thought about it. I feel like it all each of their powers kind of ties to their backstory a little bit. Um, at least when I initially thought of it. If I change the backstory, like when it comes time to reveal it, then that's a different story. But I feel like it all has to do a little bit with it, yeah. So they all
I
kind of like,
mean,
yeah,
no, that's fair, and honestly, that adds an extra like bit of energy for me to like just really finish getting through the book and understanding if I can see like the connection between, oh, this is really why you got fired. This is why and trying to understand that more. But overall, I'm about where am I at? I'm on chapter 69 so far.
Oh wow,
I
you made it real far.
yeah,
Yeah.
I I had a 6 hour flight, and I just kind of like was like, you know what, I'm gonna get a decent bit in it to like make sure I can actually hold a conversation before the interview. But as
Yeah.
I started getting into it, I was like, okay, next page, next chapter. It's
Okay,
really
cool.
engaging. So
Cool.
kudos on that, and that's a little bit of a high praise just because you don't necessarily know me as much yet, but I'm a very, very, very tough critic on things. Like my favorite anime of all time, which is where I got my name from, that you see on here, is only an 8 out of 10 to me. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
I
really?
I really am a pretty harsh critic on literature, especially stuff in the fantasy realm. But you got a page turner here, so all the kudos to you for that. Um, the audience now knows that to expect a series that at 4 to 5 books here, if you can give one message to the audience about about your series, what to take from it, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say it's funny because a lot of people ask me like, "What's your takeaway?" or like, "What are you trying to say?" In the book itself, and I feel like a lot of the messages, like, I don't really like, at least in this first book, I don't actually go into it trying to have like a hit yourself over the head message. Um, I mean, I guess the undertones of it would be probably like trust God, for sure. But I feel like I don't know. I think it's kind of this one at least. It's more so open for the readers to interpret it because the biggest takeaway of this one is what you don't see or like what you don't hear because like it's very much tied to the back of the book where like negligence is a funny thing, so because you are so hyper focused on what the characters are doing in real time, which is kind of like you see them going through their day to day, you don't really notice what's happening around them and their environment, and that's by design because they're not noticing it either. So then when they notice it, you notice it, and it's like, what's going on? So you get the confusion as them. So I kind of just want the readers to feel what the characters are feeling. Um, and it's okay if, not everything's explained because it wasn't meant to be explained, if that makes sense. You
Yeah,
know,
that
I
makes
guess,
perfect sense. And
yeah, it's very,
honestly, with your
Mhm.
explanation there, you actually put a secret message in there that I don't know if you caught. Be observant.
Oh
Observe your
yeah,
surroundings because things are not as always as they appear. That's a good
yeah,
message right there.
yeah. And it's a lot of the times it's like the little things that they don't look at that'll end up coming back to bite them. And another thing that I like about this book is that it's kind of like, I guess, an introduction to everything, or at least everyone that you will meet, like all the major characters or anyone who would be of importance in their class. You end up meeting them, which is really nice. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Bottom line though, if you guys are at all into high fantasy, if you like, seeing black people with superpowers and like actually seeing words that sound like they're coming from a black person, like this is a book for you. I can't give it enough praise. Uh, Everything from down to the art on the outside to the art on the inside feels very authentic and individual. Um, the characters are very relatable and seem human. There's not like tropes that they're following. They're just characters that happen to be in a world where there's a lot going on. Everything from enhanced technology to a secret organization to superpower contests, massive world, beautiful map. Very very interesting writer here. Pick this one up. I highly recommend it. I can't give a final score yet because I haven't finished it, but I'll make
yeah,
sure to put that in there in post because I'll have it
yeah,
done before this interview comes out.
yeah, yeah. I also had a question for you, just like hearing the
Great.
feedback from like, 'cause I never really had like a conversation with like a reader who's having it like as they're reading it. So like, as you're going, because you're about halfway through now. There's 104 chapters total. So you have like
Okay.
about like less than 40 left to go. So what was it like for you reading it? Like as your experience, because the way you described it is literally what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like you're just it's funny because even though I chopped it off, it still ended up being true to the title. It's just entering the world, like just seeing
Hmm.
what they see. There's a lot going on, and you're getting a taste from it as you're entering this new world that they're going
Hmm.
into as well. So like what was it
So
like for you?
for me, it was honestly, it felt like I am reading a series that I'm gonna be watching on Netflix, right? Like, just it's like, oh, like seeing get to like you paint a picture of like what the surrounding is going on at that time.
Mhm.
You of course you have the characters interacting with each other and the environment, and it the scene feels complete by the time the chapter is over, and then you get to the next chapter, and it's like it's almost it translates so well just because I've consumed so much content like that, like like the Game of Thrones style, or like going even back further to like Justice League Unlimited, where you kind of just jump from character to scenario to character. Um, it felt like I was watching the show, but I was reading. So uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of how I felt going through it, and that's kind of what pulled me into it to the level that I am. So
Okay,
kudos,
cool.
man. Like your cadence was really well done. I never felt really bored going through it, like, because it was just okay. When this is wrapped up, you're going into the next thing right away, and it's like continuing the journey. It's not like, oh, this part is kind of spacey. Like, okay, this is just about exposition and understanding, like, the world. Okay, blah blah blah. I never got that. They just felt like constant. This is important. This is important. This is important. But it's not overwhelming. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. And how are like the flashbacks for you? Did they seem like natural? Like when you go from past to present? Like that's one of the things I do for like
So
chapter break.
when I got to the first flashback, it confused me slightly just because I didn't realize I was in a flashback. But by the time I kind of saw more of them, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of like I don't know if you ever watched Green Arrow on the CW.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I love that
Yeah,
show.
but it
Yeah.
kind of felt like, okay, this is the scene where Oliver's on the island going through this. This is, the present of them having to deal with things in real time. Again, trying to talk with no spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for anybody watching. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
That
think
was
it
a really
flowed
big
well
compliment.
once.
CW is
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I disagree. I think that show had good moments. The first three seasons I think were really solidly done, but I think it
Okay,
fell
we're
off
not
a
gonna talk
cliff
about the
after that.
ending, though. How they did him dirty, that doesn't count when I say it's really good. That don't
I
count.
don't have to
That
talk
what is
about
it?
that ending.
Armageddon?
So
The
that crossover Power Rangers episode that they did, we don't need to
that
get
doesn't
there.
count when I say it
Yeah.
was good.
Hmm. But no, but the early parts of Arrow were some of my best. Well, my some of my best memories of
Yeah.
watching live action
Yeah.
television and superhero content.
Yeah.
Some of my guys are making faces at me through the glass, but and it felt just really in cadence with that. If that makes any sense, like this is it felt like this was like a fan of that type of content making more content around that for fans of it. Like it,
Mm,
yeah.
cool. Cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad it made sense though too. And even the thing about like cadence, because sometimes I'm like, I want it to like ebb and flow, but I always like wonder, like, does this make sense? Or like, is it, like, is it? I feel like I could cut things out, but then I'm just like, I feel like you're gonna need them for later. Like, it's kind of like it's
Yeah, I
easier.
mean,
It's like something, easier to learn in real time. Yeah.
yeah, I think that you have a very unique way of storytelling that I think more people may need to try to kind of follow, because like it didn't feel like a lull. Like sometimes, like yeah, like I said it before, but like yeah, sometimes when you're reading something, I'm just like, yeah, I get this is probably important, but it's not enjoyable to get through. I don't
Mm.
think I ever really got a feeling like that at all. And again, I'm pretty far in. I still got a little ways to go. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's
But
cool.
to wrap this up, because I don't want to eat up your whole night, can you let the audience know where to find you, where they can get the hidden scripts, and when to expect more from you?
Yeah,
I
for
know that
sure.
that
So
last
if you
part's
want,
probably tough, but just throwing it out there.
yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad you asked that. I need to also like remember to put that out there. You can find me at thehiddenscript.com if you want to order your book. That's our website. And also at the bottom of the website, you'll see all the links to the socials. But we are on TikTok at the Hidden Script, Twitter/X at the Hidden Script. You can find me on Instagram at the Hidden Script Series and on Facebook at the Hidden Script Series, as well as Pinterest at the Hidden Script. And in terms of what's coming up next, there is a second book that is coming out. Um, I have the cover design done, and then at LA Comic Con, actually, we had like the special edition, like exclusive look into the draft, and that was crazy too. That was like fresh off the laptop. I literally just had to like hunker down for 3 days, write it in between cons, get it express
Wow.
print. Yeah, it was a hot mess for me, but it ended up working out
And,
great for everybody else. Yeah.
and so, like, you wouldn't have been able to tell from the actual display of it because everything it looked really cool. Like, I was literally like when I came across your booth, I was in the process of coming back from bringing in drinks to everybody because we've been at the booth all day, and I
Cool.
had no plans on stopping. And I saw the book, and I just kind of like you remember in the cartoons where the body will keep walking, but the head just stays there. I kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
had
yeah,
that
yeah.
moment. I was like, hold on, what is this? And just kind of got to talk to you and your team more, and I was just like, yeah, but give me that. I need the whatever special edition. Give me that. I got the book,
The
the
first
script with
preview.
me. Yeah, so I mean, I haven't read that yet. Was I supposed to read that first, or is that after? Just out of
No.
curiosity.
That's the second book. So you're getting to see the sequel. So that's supposed to come out July 9th,
Okay,
2024. So I've been like,
exclusives. Okay, I'll take it.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
literally because like there's no version of that draft that's gonna exist again. Literally, when I go back to
Mhm.
my laptop, it's gonna be like a different rendition. So you get the first like from my mind. And actually, I want to know what you think about it too because it's a clamshell arc. So you get the beginning two parts, and then you get the last two parts, and
Okay,
so you're gonna be left wondering how they get from point A to point B.
perfect. I'm
And it's
glad that.
yeah, I'm glad you didn't spoil yourself. This is a major spoiler.
Mhm. Okay, good. Because
Yeah,
I looked at it, was like, this looks cool. Should I go there first? And like, you know what? Let me not mess myself up. I'm gonna dive into the book first, and
yeah,
I've enjoyed my experience getting through it, and I'm really excited to see more from it. And I really appreciate you for coming on here. You are now our second interview in our Blerd Views series. So thank
nice.
you for giving us your time. This
Welcome.
series is going to be premiering in January 5th, I believe, is when the first one is coming out. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
I'll probably cut that out just in case it switches. But genuinely, thank you for your time. I hope the audience that gets to see this enjoys reading through your book as much as I did because you did your thing here.
Amen, amen. I thank God. It's honestly it's so cool just hearing you talk about like the things that I worry about. Like, I feel like as a writer, you're like sometimes you're never satisfied, sometimes you are, but like even just little things like cadence or just like, how the characters sound. That was also a risk too, because it's not like no
Mm,
one's really that right now. I feel like
mm.
kind
No,
of, but
like no one, and I make it a habit to read from
yeah.
black writers. No, that is very individual and very authentic to your style, and I have to make sure that people know that you are the originator of that because I can't see it
Yeah.
not catching on after people see this.
I hope so, because it's like a lot of the things that I did were popular at one point. Like art used to be
Mm,
popular in books. Now it just went out of style, unless it's like
mm,
special edition. 'Cause like you kind of have to wait a couple of years, and if the book gains traction, then they'll have a
mm.
special edition with like inserts and like tip-ins and like,
Mhm.
layover art. But I kind of just wanted to do a special edition from the cuff. And that's really risky. That's why I'm kind of like wary of like giving people that kind of advice. But yeah, even just like phonetic spelling for like they used to be like, and it's not even just for like black people. If you like look back, there's like this Irish author who wrote everything in his dialect from like the
Mhm.
description to the you know dialogue too. So I used to be like a wave of like having that like very much cultural style writing. It's not as popular anymore. But I think it's just like that what made it really risky. It's like a lot of things that used to be in style that kind of like went out of style that I'm like bringing back or trying to bring back. And
Man,
I'm glad
that's how
more
trends go.
yeah, they come and go. They really do. They come and go. Well, this is like not like anything super, super new. It's just bringing back things that people just stopped doing. Yeah, as
And
much.
the
They still
one,
do it, not main. Yeah.
and the one last time, let them know where to find your book. Let them know what to expect from your pages when they get there. And I think we can wrap it up there.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely you can find me on at the Hidden Script series on Facebook and Instagram or at the Hidden Script on TikTok and Twitter. And if you want to buy the book, you can get it at thehiddenscript.com. And hopefully by the end of 2024, you'll see the first book up on Amazon. That's my goal. By December 2024, I gotta get this on Amazon. But
Bestseller in the
yeah,
making.
listen, amen. I receive it. But if you go on our website, we got the ebook, we got the hardcover for you. So what's working on next is the audiobook too. Yeah.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
who's doing the voice for that? Are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. I was thinking about doing it just because like I feel like I know like how the just the pronunciation. There's a lot of weird words in there, like because it's also Haitian
Yeah,
influence.
sign me up for that. Let me know when that is
Yeah.
dropping. I'll send my money in advance if I have to. I gotta get that. Gotta get that.
Okay, cool. I'm excited now. Yeah, cool. This is
All right,
awesome.
but
Oh
this
my
has
god. Thanks for
been.
having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. And I wanted to chat with you a little bit after I shut this down. But
Yeah, for sure.
again, this has been the Blerd Views series. You're going to see a lot of different creators of different kinds come through and talk with us about their art. And yeah, Jemima was thankful, willing enough to give us her time tonight. So thank you to
Yeah.
Jemima. I said it again, Jemima, and I'm not going to destroy your name anymore. Thank you, Jemima. You are a very talented writer, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of what you put out.
Thank you. Honestly, I just, thank God because I never like it's not even like I had a 5-year plan and I saw myself here. It just kind of happened. And like God just kept on blessing me and giving me enough for the next step and the next step. Like I didn't really even see myself having this interview or even making it to LA Comic Con like that. Listen, that whole thing was a mess too, but it worked out, so yeah, it
All
worked
right,
out. Yeah.
and then to things working out, we're shutting it down here.
Yeah. Bye, y'all.
All right, live and close.
Yes.
Hiddenscript.com.